Good morning, BookTube. It's Lori here with Books, Ink, and Paper. I'm back with you today to do my first ever tag. Here on BookTube, there are some tags that go around periodically. Sometimes they resurrect, and sometimes you're tagged by a specific person, and sometimes you are just sort of generally encouraged to participate. I was not specifically tagged by anyone for this book tag, but I watched Kendra Winchester do this tag a week or so ago, and she said, if you're watching this and you want to participate, feel free to consider yourself tagged, and so I am excited to participate. This one is interesting to me. So this tag is a 10 strange bookish facts about me. I'm not sure how strange they are, but hopefully they're interesting to you. So let's get started. The first one on my list, and I did write them down so I wouldn't forget them. The first one on my list is that I learned a lot about classic literature at a very young age because I played this game with my sisters. It was called Famous Authors. My partner got me another copy of it a couple of years ago. And so ultimately what it is just a matching game, but it had all of the classic authors in the deck. Here's the Scarlet Letter and David Copperfield. And so, of course, he wrote Oliver Twist, A Christmas Carol, and the Pickwick Papers, which are listed on the card. So what it did for me was it really allowed me to understand who wrote the classics, and then it made me interested to take a look. So I read classics from a very early age. What's interesting and notable about this deck is that there are very few women authors in it. So it's probably, I think Louisa May Alcott is here. Anyway, you match these up and it was great fun. Little Women, Louisa May Alcott, Little Men. Yeah, I think she's the only woman in the whole deck. I'm gonna look again next time we play. Anyway, it was fun, and it just created a yearning inside of me, not only to play a game with my sisters about famous authors, but also to read some of their work. And I have been able to do that and continue to do that as an adult. The second strange bookish fact about me is that I read The Exorcist when I was about 10 or 11 years old. It came out in 1971, so I was 10 that year, and I feel like I read it either that year or the next. My cousin, we were visiting my aunt and uncle in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My cousins were all between 9 and 14 years older than me, and my sisters were 12 and 14 years older than me. So my cousin was away, probably at college, and he had the book in his room, and I discovered it, and it looked so fascinating to me that I started to read it and immediately recognized that that probably was not a book that my parents would approve of me reading. So I'm ashamed to say that I holed myself up in his room for the weekend, feigned an illness of some sort, and read the book in the whole time we were there. I couldn't put it down. I think I came out to eat, but I may not have even come out to eat because that may have blown my cover, so to speak, my story. But I was fascinated by it, obsessed by it, so much so that I couldn't wait for the movie to come out. I will tell you that I didn't watch the movie for many years, and when I did, I was terrified of it, and for a long time I couldn't watch it again. But now it remains one of my favorite books of horror and the horror genre, and one of my favorite horror movies to watch. Shortly after I read The Exorcist, I also read The Godfather, courtesy of my cousin who also had that in his room. And so I really took advantage of his book buying at that time and really enjoyed reading those kind of maybe not acceptable books for me to read at a young age. Number 3, I used to write poetry a lot, and I would bind books of poetry with pieces of yarn and 3-ring notebook pages. They were purple, as I recall. Purple paper was probably my favorite color. Say that first part fast. So I would bind them together, and the poems were pretty interesting. And I wish I had them now so I could take a look at them again, but I don't have them anymore. So I was a published poet for a long time, self-published poet. Number 4, I have said this, I think, on another video, but I really dislike movie tie-in book covers. I'm not a fan of reading or watching the movie before the book anyway, but something happens to me when I see a book republished with a movie tie-in cover, and I just don't like them. Like, I am really upset and annoyed by them. And so I do my best to never purchase a movie tie-in cover. I did recently read Silver Linings Playbook, and it was a movie tie-in, but I got it from a book sale and I just really wanted to read it. And I do like Bradley Cooper. However, that may be the only movie tie-in book that I have willingly read. I'm even annoyed when I have a Nook or Kindle book that becomes a movie and the cover inside of my device changes to the movie tie-in. It just makes me nuts, and I don't know why. Number 5, when I travel, I always look for independent booksellers, and I try to really utilize those independent booksellers as frequently as possible. Some of the times that I go to a new place and I find a new store, I'm so excited. Sometimes it's a used bookstore, sometimes it's an indie seller. One of my favorites is in Oxford, Mississippi, Square Books, and they actually have 3 branches on the square. So one of them is also gifts, and they're just unique things. If you ever get a chance to go to Oxford, I really recommend that you visit Square Books. But I have visited independent booksellers all over the country and sometimes in other parts of the world. I also love to visit libraries in other cities and states that I visit and where I travel. So I've been to public libraries where I lived in DC. So I've been to the National Public Library. I've been to the Library of Congress. I've been to New York Public Library. I've been to Denver's library. I've been to a library in California. It goes on and on and on. So suffice it to say, that's one of my favorite things about traveling, is visiting a new bookseller or a library. Number 6, I have a library card from 5 local library systems. So I cannot have enough library cards, apparently. So I probably have access to probably 15 libraries in the near 2-hour to me area. And I check out books from all of them. If I want a book and I can't find one, if I have time to travel, or I'm going to be traveling to one place or another that's not too far from me, I will request that book and go get it. Number 7, I own a signed first edition copy of The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. I am a fan of Eat, Pray, Love. I did not love any of the other books she's written so far. I have not read Big Magic, but I will tell you that The Signature of All Things may be the hardest book I've ever tried to read. I don't even know that I got past 30 or 50 pages. I've not finished it. I really didn't like it. My friend described it as, I don't even remember how long it is, but 450 pages about moss. And that is indeed what it is. She finished it. Go Heidi. I did not. Number 8, again, talking to my early reading and my love of horror, I read Carrie in 1975 as a young person, a teenager. What's strange about this is not that I read it at that time, because I think a lot of teenagers read Carrie at that time. What's strange about it is that my dad went into my room one night while I was reading something else and looked through my shelf for something to read, because he was an avid reader, and he chose Carrie, and I freaked out because Carrie was a pretty difficult read in terms of the subject matter, but more importantly, it was filled with curse words. And I knew that my dad would then know that I had read this book that was filled with curse words, and I wasn't sure that he would find it to be the kind of read he was looking for. But he finished it, and he didn't say a whole lot about it. He brought it back, reshelved it, and said something to the effect of, "That was really interesting." And not in a "that was really interesting" kind of a way. I'm not sure if he liked it or didn't like it, but he finished it. And that was the first book I remember that both of us, read. But it was one of the only books that we both read that we didn't ever speak about. Number 9, I hoard books when I'm stressed. And by hoarding them, I say I hoard them and then I don't read them. So typically I will not purchase them when I'm stressed because I don't like, it's kind of like stress eating. I don't like stress book buying. It seems like not a good idea. But what I do is I pile them up from the library, and I'll have sometimes 3 or 4, sometimes I'll have as many as 8 or 10. And I know I'm not going to read them in the 2 to 3 weeks that I have them checked out. But for some reason, when I'm stressed, that comforts me. I've actually written a blog post about this to some degree. It feels like I have control over the choice that I've made. It feels like I have a familiar friend with me, and it feels like I have an opportunity to read a book that maybe will decrease my stress. So I will sometimes read 1 or more of them, but I just collect them for a bit until I kind of calm down again, and then I return them. I know that's really strange, isn't it? And the last one, number 10, is I don't read a lot of romance novels, but I do read romance novels when I'm in a reading slump. And I used to read romance novels when I would finish a semester in college. So when I was done reading whatever it was I was reading for class, when I was finished with midterms or finals for that semester, I would just pick up a really easy, really simple romance novel. So I have read Harlequin romances in my lifetime. I have read Nora Roberts more than once. I have read a couple of other romance writers whose names now escape me, but I just really think that they're easy to read when I'm finished with something major or when I'm in a reading slump. So they are kind of the priming the well, if you will, for me to get back into a habit of reading. And they're usually fast and quick, and I don't really, no offense, but I don't really have to think hard or absorb a lot of character development or think about place or setting or plot or anything. They're just really easy and predictable. And the interesting thing for me, the fun thing for me, is that Nora Roberts often publishes a trilogy of romance novels, and they really excite me because here's what happens. The trilogy is always about 3 men and 3 women, and in each book, one of those couples ends up getting together. And so there's this tension between the other 2, and one couple gets together, and then there's tension between, there's tension, and then they get together, and then there's still tension, and then they get together, and it's just so predictable and so fun. And they amuse me. One of my favorites is, I'll have to publish or post a card in about it, but one of my favorites is the one about a bed and breakfast. And I think another character in the book might have a bookstore as well. Anyway, those are probably my favorites of all of them. And then there's also a horror trilogy. I'll pop one of them in the card here too. There's a horror trilogy about some pretty crazy things, and that is even more exciting. But of course, there's romance, and people, get together, and yeah, great fun. So those are my 10 strange bookish facts about me. If you are watching this video and you would like to do a video about the 10 strange bookish facts about you, consider yourself tagged too.
And I'll go ahead and tag Sarah Swan if she hasn't participated yet. And if she has, I'll link the video in the description below. But Sarah is one of my inspirations for my time here on BookTube, and I've been watching her forever since she first began. And I would love to learn more about the strangest things, bookish facts about Sarah as well. As always, thanks so much for your support. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up underneath the video, as well as maybe a comment about some strange bookish facts about you if you don't want to do a tag video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please share these videos and my channel with other people that you think would like them. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great, great day, and happy reading. Bye-bye.